All right, here's the continuous, unbroken version. The real, raw, systemic explanation of how muscle is actually built through training. No tables, no bullet points, just the logic chain in pure written form. Muscle growth is a product of mechanical tension and metabolic stress that, when sustained and repeated, force the organism to remodel its tissue. The entire process is a self correcting feedback loop between training stress, recovery, and adaptation. Every variable, repetitions, load, volume, rest, and frequency, exists to manipulate that loop. Hypertrophy does not happen because of a single rep range or secret technique, but because of how these parameters are aligned with biological recovery capacity. Repetitions and load define the character of the stimulus. Heavy weights in the 80–90% of 1 rep max range produce the greatest neural drive and mechanical tension, but limited time under tension, which mainly strengthens the nervous system and the myofibrillar structure of the muscle. Moderate weights, around 65 to 80% of 1 rep max, balance tension with metabolic fatigue. This zone, roughly 6 to 12 repetitions per set, taken near failure, triggers both myofibrillar and sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Lighter loads below 65% can also build muscle if sets are carried to or near failure, but fatigue accumulation and time inefficiency limit their usefulness. True hypertrophy occurs most efficiently when the muscle receives both mechanical strain and metabolic stress, not merely one or the other. Total volume, defined as sets multiplied by reps and load, acts as the dose of the training drug. Too little, and the signal is subthreshold. Too much, and recovery systems are overwhelmed, leading to stagnation. Beginners adapt well with roughly 10 to 12 hard sets per muscle group per week. As adaptation progresses, the muscle requires more total work, up to around 15 to 20 weekly sets for intermediates, and possibly 20 or more for advanced athletes if recovery allows. What matters is that the volume is composed of high quality, close to failure work, not filler sets performed far from muscular fatigue. The human organism has a ceiling of recoverable volume defined by hormonal balance, nervous system recovery, nutrient availability, and sleep quality. Beyond that point, added sets merely add fatigue, not adaptation. Rest between sets governs how much of that potential volume can actually be performed. Heavier lifts that recruit high threshold motor units require 3 to 5 minutes between sets to restore phosphagen energy systems and CNS readiness. The moderate load hypertrophy work generally benefits from rests between 90 seconds and 2 minutes. Shorter rest intervals, around 45 to 90 seconds, increase local metabolite buildup and cellular swelling but reduce total mechanical work output. The balance depends on intent. Longer rests favor strength and total load lifted. Shorter rests amplify metabolic stress. The most efficient hypertrophy training blends both. Heavy compound movements with long rest, followed by lighter accessory work with short rest. The body must also recover between sessions. Muscle protein synthesis remains elevated for about 1 to 2 days after training in experienced lifters, sometimes 3 in beginners, while connective tissues and the nervous system often need an extra day or two. Therefore, the same muscle group should generally be trained again every 2 to 4 days for intermediates and every 3 to 5 days for advanced lifters, depending on how intense and damaging the previous session was. Training a muscle once per week leaves much of its adaptive potential untapped. Training it daily prevents complete repair and supercompensation. 2 exposures per week per muscle group usually represents the equilibrium point where growth is continuous and recovery sustainable. Exercise selection should revolve around compound lifts that train large movement patterns, squat and hinge for the legs and posterior chain, horizontal and vertical pushes for the chest and shoulders, and horizontal and vertical pulls for the back. These movements create the foundation for systemic tension and hormonal response. Isolation work then refines weak points and ensures balanced development. The priority should always be movement patterns, not individual muscles, because the nervous system organizes functionally, not anatomically. The process of progression is the governing mechanism of all of this. Without continuous load escalation through small increments of weight, added repetitions, or additional sets, the body ceases to perceive a threat to its homeostasis. This is why all serious training systems, regardless of method, orbit around progressive overload. The nervous system and muscle fibers must experience a gradually increasing demand over time, but not at a rate that exceeds recovery capacity. The art of training lies in balancing stress and adaptation so that the organism is always slightly overreaching, never breaking. For recovery, the key variables are sleep, calorie intake, and hormonal environment. Caloric surplus provides the energy and substrate for tissue synthesis. Insufficient calories or low body fat levels suppress testosterone and blunt hypertrophic signaling. Rest days are not wasted time, but the phase where growth actually occurs. Training only supplies the signal. The rebuilding happens when the lifter is eating, sleeping, and not training. In practice, this means training each major movement pattern twice weekly, performing the bulk of work in the 6 to 12 rep range at 65 to 80% of maximum, resting roughly 2 minutes between sets, accumulating 10 to 20 effective sets per muscle per week, and increasing load or total work slowly over months. Each session should include a few heavy compound lifts, followed by accessory work that attacks weaknesses or drives metabolic stress. After each workout, sufficient protein and total calories must be consumed to support synthesis, and sleep quality must be maintained to keep endocrine recovery intact. This system, applied with discipline and patience, builds maximal muscle mass that the natural human organism is capable of sustaining. It's not glamorous or secretive, it's a cold biological optimization problem. The variables are known, the limits are hard, and the outcome depends entirely on consistency and the balance between stress and repair. All programs are merely different numerical expressions of these same laws.